exam.
Go back.
Anything that I've covered here today,
Math questions.
especially if it's math, unless you guys are real financial wizards and you enjoy that part, great, more power to you. But if not, and you're like me, then I would tell you, you know what? Put it on your whiteboard.
Put on the
Finish
whiteboard the
that
math
at the
questions,
end
come
when
back.
you've relieved all the
Or
stress
else
of
you'll use up
the
your time.
unknown questions, and now you can sit and really relax. Use it as a brain teaser, if you will. Okay? So, the manner in which a transfer is accomplished affects income tax reporting for both principals. That's a test question as well.
What? Oh.
Property taxes are paid on real property, but not on personal property.
Do this live.
Property taxes are an ad valorem tax. It's on the test. And it's based on the value of the thing taxed. So you've got the original basis of valuation. That's your price paid for the property. And then over the years, it's adjusted upward or down based on either appreciation and improvements that you made or depreciation if it's run down like a little fox's shack. That basis is balanced against the net sales proceeds. So that's your sales price minus the cost of the sale. And that it gives you either you're arriving at a capital gain or a loss. And then the loss doesn't have to be reported on a personal residence. And any gain on that personal residence can be offset. If it's $250,000 for an individual, or if you're married filing separately, $250,000. $500,000 for a couple filing jointly when you report the sale to the IRS. What's that mean? I buy a house for $100,000. I sell it for $600,000. Married, filing jointly, I don't have any capital gains tax at all on that $500,000 profit. But there is something that's not in here. You had to have lived in that property as your primary residence on your tax returns as well, 2 out of the last 5 years. It could have been you bought the property and you moved in and you lived in it for a year. You renovated the whole property and fixed it up, remodeled it, and you move out and rent it for 3 years. Maybe it's a short-term rental, maybe it's a long-term rental. The last year you move back in, you clean it up and redo again, all the damage that's been done, and then you sell it. You lived in it 2 of the last 5 years, and it doesn't have to be a consecutive 2 years.
Right. That's the answer. We got to work together because we
Property
learn more
taxes in
together.
California are affected by Prop 13.
And we bounce off ideas
That
off
means
of each
you
other.
have
That's
a
the
maximum
answer.
rate of 1% of the transfer value as your basis for your state taxes. That amount is adjusted upward by a maximum of 2%. This is on the test. Plus your special service area charges by your local authorities, as in the case with your Melrose districts. And you can find the Melrose tax special assessments right on the tax bill. Interest paid on mortgages originated to purchase or substantially improve the first or second home also is deductible on those balances. Tax loopholes. You have mortgage interest deduction. That's a rule for income tax reporting that allows your homeowners to deduct from your adjusted gross income the interest that you pay on your first and second homes to reduce your taxable income. And the interest is reported as an itemized deduction. The mortgages funded the purchase price or paid for that cost of improvements for your primary residence or a second home. The mortgages are secured either by your principal residence or your second home. It's secured by that trust deed, right? First or second home. Special processes. I told you around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would go over adverse possession with you again. These are squatters' rights. That's what adverse possession is. An occupant can establish title to a property. They can actually go to the judge, to the court, and receive ownership to the property. But they have to fulfill all 5 of these bullet points. 1, their possession is based on a claim of right or color of title. Google it, look it up, but I'll tell you what, you'll recognize those italics. When you see claim of right or color of title, you know you're on the right answer. They have occupied the property in an open and notorious way, which constitutes reasonable notice to the record owner. So they don't come in between suns and slip in at night and close the garage door and like nobody knows they're there. The dryer, you can smell the downy on the street. The kids are out playing baseball in the street and riding their bikes. I don't know if kids do that anymore, but she's out gardening, and I mean, they're coming and going where the neighbors are waving hi. They believe they're their new neighbors. They're not just sneaking in after dark. Their occupancy is hostile and inconsistent with the owner's title. Hostile, not at gunpoint. Hostile meaning it's completely not what it says. It says Jean and Judy Wagner own this property, but we have Tommy and Sally that are living in the property. So it's inconsistent with the owner's title. They've been in possession for a continuous and uninterrupted period of at least 5 years. Uninterrupted means there's been no police reports filed on them, and they've had 5 years continuity, and they've paid all the property taxes assessed against that property during their occupancy. And a lot of times when I teach this live, people say, how do you pay somebody else's taxes? mytaxcollector.com, and you go in there and put an address in. It'll take your Visa, your MasterCard, your credit card, your checking account, your blood type. It'll take everything. It'll let you pay anybody's taxes you want to pay. No questions asked. So with that being said, what would be an example of that? Well, I sold a house to my nephew in Yucca Valley, and I showed him the property. It was vacant. And we walked in, and he said, this is the one. He says, Judy, go ahead and write it up. So I wrote up the property, and oh my goodness, 3 days later, it was accepted that night. 3 days later, I showed up early, but I was waiting for the home inspector. And then my nephew shows up, and I put the key in the door, and I walked in. I kid you not, this is without exaggeration. Lace tablecloth, flowers on the table, crock pot had a roast in it, children's bunk beds erected and set up, and toys scattered from one end of the yard in the bedroom in the house everywhere, like they'd been living there for 5 years. I backed out of that house fast. I looked at the key and I thought, I'm in somebody's home. I looked at the address. I looked at the MLS. This is back in the day when we still carried our paper printout. I looked at that and I thought, this is the right house. How come this meter was just here 3 days ago and it was totally vacant? So I called the listing agent, and he said, Judy, I'm back here in Wisconsin. He said, no, that house is vacant. There shouldn't be anybody there. It's empty. I said, okay, I just want to make sure I was in the right house. Literally, you guys, the squatters had moved in. They were professionals. They had set up house from the time I was there and showed it, and 3 days later, for the home inspection, they had moved in. So we filed a police report. That would have been interrupted. We changed the doorknobs 5 times during a 30-day escrow. 5 times I went back to that property. We tried to meet the appraiser. I had to go. The appraiser couldn't get in. I just carried a bucket of doorknobs so that we could go in, because they would move in at night and they would just simply change the lock so we couldn't get in. By the time we did our final walkthrough, my husband booted me up. I went through the kitchen window. I opened the door from the inside. I gave them as a closing gift those combo locks. Great big set of those. And here's your alarm system to go with it. Why I share all of that with you? That's a true example of professional squatters. They're out in the public. The car was in the garage. They were waving to everybody. We thought everybody in the neighborhood thought they belonged there. They were only there 3 days. Okay? Government may also take title, remember, to property for eminent domain, to widen the roads, place parks, etc. And on the test, that's called condemnation or eminent domain. It could be either or. It means the same thing. Probate transfers happen in a probate court. Tax deed sale, guess what? That's through tax deed sale. But the thing is, on a tax deed sale, they are just trying to collect the unpaid property taxes and convey title to that purchaser. So during that tax deed sale, the property is usually sold for the unpaid tax amount. And I know one right now that was close to probably a $600,000 value on the home, and it sold at tax sale for $38,000 with back taxes. I was shocked. Missed that one. It was too late to get a bid in. Vesting is a method of holding title to real estate. As real estate agents, you never want to say, oh, Johnny and Susie, you want to take it as joint tenancy. That's what Jean and I do. Oh, you guys, you might be really smart to take that. do the vesting as community property. Oh no, my kids always do community property with right of survivorship. Never advise. Sure as the world, when they go through a divorce or something happens, or anything, Judy, you told us to take this as joint tenancy. Now we're in divorce court, and now look at they're making us sell the property and
Listen.
divide it up. You never want to get involved in that situation. I have actually printed this page out before and given it to my clients. As I said, 6 adult kids, I've done the same thing for them. Half the kids take it in all different ways. They don't all of them take it because the same way. It's all unique to your own situation, your tax and your CPA. Always know when to tell someone to suggest that they seek legal counsel or seek counsel from their CPA. Always do that. Never advise or practice unauthorized practice of law. A vesting is simply a method of holding title to real estate. You have joint tenancy. When a joint tenant dies on joint tenancy, their interest is eliminated. Your surviving joint tenants share the remaining ownership equally. You know, you can have 2 or more individuals on joint tenants. It doesn't have to just be husband and wife.
God's coming, man.
2 individuals. I've sold numerous properties to brother and sister with joint tenancy. Just partners, business partners, joint tenancy. So, joint tenants, they take title together on the same deed. At the same time, they hold equal shares in the ownership of the property, and they each have the right to possess the entire property, and it's known as the 4 unities. Quite a few questions are potential questions on the 4 unities. I'll cover it down here again for you. Tenancy in common, you can have varying percentages of ownership in a property. You can take title at different times. I could buy it and add every single one of the 22 students on this class with me today, or 23, and we could just keep slicing the pie a little bit thinner. Somebody could buy a larger slice of pie, and somebody could have a real thin diet size. It doesn't matter. Each one can take title at different times. You can have centralized rights of possession. You have the north wing and I have the south wing. When we come in here, this ensuite is ours and this one is yours. If a joint tenant conveys their interest in the property to another person, now that person takes title as a tenant in common, and they can will their interest to the property to others when they die, because tenancy in common carries no right of survivorship with it. So if there were 23 of us on this class that own one property together and I died, you would lose me, but you would pick up 7 more. You'd get my husband and 6 kids. Okay, so it's a very good way for grandpa to keep the property in the family name, because on any given day, do 13 grandkids all agree to sell the property? That's kind of what it means, because when one of them passes away, they can will it to their 4 children. Then you have community property. California is a community property state. All property that's acquired by a married couple in California during a marriage is presumed to be community property, unless they acquire it as their separate property from the spouse. Under that community property vesting, ownership interests are equal. Now you've got the same thing. It's identical to community property vesting, but it can include the words creating a right of survivorship. That way, on the death of the spouse, that surviving spouse automatically becomes the sole owner of the property. And there's tax benefits and consequences to all of those. So that's where I always recommend that my clients seek counsel, either from an attorney, from their CPA for their particular tax situation and finances. But I never say, oh, just take it as joint tenants. That's what we do. Or say, oh, you want to put it in a trust. Now you've incurred expense that they've had to create a trust to put the properties in. Most joint tenancies created between a married couple, but absolutely joint tenancy can exist between non-married people. And community property vestings are only available to married couples like this, or registered domestic partners. That's
Reasoning. Contract.
Joint tenants is not limited to 2. Married couples ownership of community property.
Kevin, your voice. Can you?
One deed,
You're
any
helping.
number of homeowners can take title to real estate as joint tenants. The only ownership condition
was the
is that the
fucking
joint tenants take equal
all
ownership
the
interest in the
champion,
property.
dude.
If
Oh,
there's more,
fuck
you
up.
always
Kevin, you're more of a distraction.
Yeah,
Stop.
yeah, triple
Traditionally,
focus.
you've got joint
Quadruple
tenancy,
check.
and that conveyance of foreign unities, you've got your unity of title.
That's
Once
what's
you guys
fucking up,
really
dude.
memorize
That's
these,
what's up, dude.
unity of
Purpose
title,
is
unity
like,
of
is a
time,
purpose, you know?
unity of
James is
interest,
over there.
and the unity of possession. The way to remember that is TTIP, time, title,
Contract.
interest, and
It's
possession.
like, stress.
Upon the death of one of the parties, the
And
other
then,
joint tenants inherit the
it's
deceased
like-
interest, free of any debt obligations. Johnny and Susie are brother and sister. They
What do you
both
call
own the property together.
10-sided pentagon?
Wait, listen.
Susie dies
Decagon.
and she owes the IRS $60,000.
Listen.
Johnny inherits the whole
Decagon,
property
dude.
debt-free.
So a
The
decagon,
IRS
the
cannot
quadruple
come
champ.
after him.
Okay, listening.
The other potential heirs to the
Yeah,
deceased
dude.
estate and
Some
creditors
people,
cannot
man.
make claims regarding the property. Now, severalty ownership
Right.
refers
So
to
go
property
one,
owned by
and then go
one
two.
Kevin,
person.
please.
Okay.
It's several, not several. I'm ashamed to tell you, I did not know that. I always thought it was several. I didn't know it was sever until I started teaching in 2007.
It's not you.
So,
Not
Did
to
you
you.
take your
Yeah.
medication?
No, I'm just thinking
You're probably
about
thinking,
other
does this
people.
girl
It's
even
like,
qualify to be teaching us?
it's so weird.
On the
Sever.
test, they're gonna give
Sever
examples,
is
scenario.
one
You
person.
listen.
I know, I'm thinking of
Not
freaking
severalty.
UFC and
Stop.
shit. It's like,
Owners can hold
this
property
world,
as
man.
general
Business
or
ideas
limited
and
partners
shit.
or corporations, and couples may also take title as revocable
It's like,
or irrevocable trusts for
this will
estate
make
planning
sense, you know?
purposes,
UFC.
just like that on the test. Here's your words that we didn't even
This
cover
world,
all of
man.
them.
Yeah, it's
So
fun.
make sure that you study this chapter at the end.
And after you win these, right, it's
Chapter
like
6 is the largest portion
That's
of
what's
the
gonna
exam.
happen. It's like,
I know
you
it's
know,
3
respect,
o'clock in
and
the
then they get
afternoon,
better.
and I'm sorry. I did try once. I had 32 real estate attorneys once in my class.
Yeah, dude. This is crazy.
And I had them in there taking this class
This is
with
the
me,
biggest,
and they told me,
25%.
this is the honest truth. They said, Judy, why, if the bulk of the class is chapter 6, why don't you start with that when we've all had coffee,
Oh,
we're
man,
all
dude.
fresh this morning, why would you
25%
wait till after
chapter
lunch? I said, you know what? It's your class. Is that what you want? They all voted. I did it. I did chapter 6 first. We were so lost. They were asking questions. We didn't have the foundation built before we got to chapter 6, and they were completely really sorry
Give
that
it
they'd
all
asked
you
me.
got.
I don't take anything out of context any longer. Duane Gomer knew what he was doing when he wrote this, but this chapter takes me almost an hour.
What the
And then
fuck?
we're done with chapter 6. 25% of the exam is here because it's real estate practice,
yeah,
and it's what we
dude.
really do. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10 go quickly. Okay?
Yeah.
But it was a
man,
disaster.
it's
I really
like-
did. I listened
yeah,
to them,
dude,
I
so-
tried. So
Or me, I mean, like, right, it's like, versus,
all right, so just the facts
it's
on
like
this one is your
just
trust account
boxing.
management. We're just
Right.
going to hit
It's
this
like, I can
slightly
only
again.
box and I'm
You know
freaking
trust funds.
take you out,
family
bro.
money.
Exactly, dude. It's like that's how it is. Or me just jits and you have a man. Right, I'm just taking you out. Okay, right, dude.
Fees and costs
Stop.
handed to a broker
Yeah.
in advance of their performance